Yeah, that's right. I see the chat. I see y'all rocking. I see y'all coming. Hit that like button as you enter the building. You know what I'm saying? Hit that like button. Show your love. Show your support. You know what I'm saying? This that dope soul. This that new thing. Nobody don't know about it.
Hello, Knick family. Welcome to the Just Knickin It weekly show. I'm your host, Stephanie, a.k.a. Queen, joined by Geoff Klafter from the Happily Ever Klafter daily sports blog. A lot to talk about tonight, even though this is the dog days of content creation. We still got a lot to talk about. Final thoughts. I mean, I shouldn't even say final, right? Free agency is still going on. So we'll talk about whatever's left to talk about in terms of free agency up to this point. Geoff has a great piece in his daily sports blog, Happily Ever Klafter, link in the description and under his name, about the second apron and how that impacted Mitchell Robinson's leaving. So we're going to talk about that, and then you'll have the opportunity to read more about it in the article. We'll talk about if the Knicks have one more move to make, or maybe more than one. If there's a trade involved, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about Summer League, and then we'll review the season, but a different type of review, right? We can't give grades. When you win the championship, everybody gets an A, right? So we'll
review, right? Yeah. First championship in 53 years. You got to give everyone an A.
Right,
I ain't grading on no curve. I'm with you on that.
Right. But we're going to review the season in a different type of way. So hang in there. I think you'll enjoy it. Geoff, I miss you guys. Last week, I was vacationing. You guys held it down. I was listening in the background. I was in the chat. You guys did an awesome job. So I'm not going to feel bad about leaving it to you guys when I'm not here, because you guys.
This train was more than they could bear. You broke them. We're 0 for 3 on the rest of them, so I don't know. You can't be doing that too often. You'll be flying solo on the dolo here before too long.
Yeah. All right. It took so much out of them. Everybody's taking a break this week. Shout out to Jerrell. I think he said he's at an Earth, Wind, and Fire concert. I didn't even know they were still singing, you know?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. And shout out to Ajay as well. And, an N5, right? N5. Appreciate. I got to change his name in the chat as well. So, Geoff, how are you? How you've been? And where do you want to start?
Well, first of all, it's almost surreal that it's been like 33 days since the Knicks won the championship, and to have on 6/13, with 6/13 being in the rafters for the number of wins that Red Holzman had, they're just another piece of poetry to the most epic season of life. I wake up every day and I remind myself that the New York Knicks are world champions, and everything that people say on Twitter or whatever, ESPN, whatever spaces, is just jealousy because we did it. We're the champs. We're the kings. Jalen Brunson is a 1A. Cat is a superstar, and y'all can just deal with it because you can't say nothing because we got that ring.
Yeah, facts. We'll talk about the ESPYs last night too, where the Knicks just kind of racked up.
They treated that like the Sixers and the Cavs. They're just like sweep.
Yeah. And Karl Anthony Towns and Brunson was looking particularly dapper at the ESPYs last night. Shout out to all of them.
I thought OG's performance was
yeah.
His acceptance speech was just, I don't know, so right. OG with the mic in his hand is a sight to behold. It's gold.
Yeah. And he probably practiced that too.
That's what makes it even better.
Right. Yeah. That was good to see. Any last minute, not even last minute, any thoughts on free agency that wasn't discussed that maybe you want to add to what's going on or foreshadow?
Well, so it's kind of an interesting time. I mean, LeBron James' status is kind of holding up the universe, which is unfortunate. He's not coming here, so I don't really care. But so that's kind of holding up other moves. But I think that there are other moves to be made, and I don't think it's just sign one more veteran minimum guy. It could be, but I don't know that there's that veteran minimum, because we really, if you look at it, we need a third center on the roster. We just don't have one right now. And, despite Liam Robbins having some nice moments in Summer League, he's not Ariel Huck-Porty. He's not a guy you can bring. I mean, you can sign him to a two-way contract if you want to, but he's not a guy you can give a regular roster spot to. We've got the 2 second-round picks who are kind of waiting in the wings at this point. Got Deuce McBride, who's up for a contract extension that I don't know that the Knicks organization wants to give him. We've got Pacome Daddier, who's not looking particularly stellar in the Summer League for a guy who's a third-year player. To be fair, Tyler Kolek didn't look good in Summer League last year, and he contributed to the Knicks' regular roster quite well. And I was really hard on him in Summer League and even in training camp. And then, we don't win the NBA Cup without the performance that he did. So leave Summer League in Summer League. Like, it's not the be all end all, but the fact that he's struggling so badly in Summer League, it can't be a good sign, right? It's not, it's not the end of the world, but it's not great either, is what I would say. I mean, and if he was playing great, I don't think you could then pencil him into the, the 9th spot either, but it's really looking bleak, especially when you consider that Daddier set to make $2.9 million. If by just not guaranteeing his contract, you can free up a veteran minimum spot and get someone in here who's, who can contribute in the here and now if you need them to.
Can they do that now? They cannot guarantee it, and it wouldn't be on the books for this upcoming season?
I think it's a team option. Did they exercise the team option? I'm not sure. I don't know if we've already exercised his team option or not. I just know that on the cap sheets that I look at, it's listed in blue, which means that it's a team option. But if they've already exercised that team option, then we're stuck on the $2.8 million. But again, 2.8, you can get a veteran minimum in for 2.4, and is going to contribute as much as Daddier will. I mean, if you're sold on Daddier's future, I don't know what you've seen so far that says, yes, this is an NBA player, but that doesn't mean that he's not, right? Because I've said that about Deuce McBride, and he improved his game and showed that he's a viable NBA rotation player. So Pacome may be. I can't say that with any certainty, but at the same time, given the salary slot, I don't know that you want to be paying that much for a guy who's not really ready to contribute in a meaningful way, in my opinion. So, I don't think it's a situation where we're just going to send him off by himself. I think if we do send him off, it's going to be a kind of a package deal with him and McBride and possibly Tyler Kolek, and send those 3 guys out, bring 1 guy back, and that brings room where you can give the $1.5 million salary to those other 2 guys. If you get someone with a higher salary that you're bringing back, or if you get someone closer to the vet min, then you can bring in another vet min guy, or maybe 2 more with that. Because look, it's all about the second apron, right? And the Knicks are trying to avoid that. They weren't going to re-sign Mitch for the second apron. I don't think they want to go into the second apron to bring back Deuce McBride either, especially with Landry Shamet and here and Jose Alvarado here for the next couple of seasons. They're on the books, so you either have to get rid of them to keep McBride, or you have to make some other moves that just don't make sense from a roster balance perspective. So to me, I think a trade is coming of some sort, consolidation trade, probably for someone at the 5 spot, and then look to see that we bring back maybe 1 or even 2 of those second round guys into the fold, if we need those, because they're the only players we can pay that 1.4, 1.5, or some other guy who's never been in the NBA before. You can use that too, is my understanding. Correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but that's my understanding of the situation. So that's what I think is going on.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for the nuance of it. It's I mean, the context as well. How do you keep some continuity, improve your team, and stay under the second apron, right? So those are the considerations those are the constraints with which the Knicks are working with right now, and it's not easy. And And I get it. This is a championship team. You want to bring everybody back, but the landscape changes around you. So you're locking yourself into a team where you don't know what the competition is going to be, because the competition is shifting and improving, and you're locked in. So I'm with the Knicks in terms of, you know, trying to stay flexible for as long as they can. To your point, I'm not sure how much longer they'll be able to do this. But I think also, and I've said this multiple times, this is championship team problems, right? And you see this from championship teams in the past, where players that contributed mightily to that team, they had to let go because they had their core and they just didn't want to sacrifice it. And they had to kind of rotate, you know, players around the edges season after season. It seems like that's where the Knicks are at. Trey Frazier from the Barbershop Podcast is in the house. Man, what's up, champ?
Oh man. Oh, I tell you what. I'm insufferable this off season. I am
As well, you well earned insufferability, my guy.
I am insufferable this off season. New York, the summer in New York in the city is lit right now. We got a championship. You know, Jay-Z, you know, sold out Yankee Stadium for 3 nights, even though that third night was a bit crazy. The city is lit. I'm having a great time. I'm having a great time. My son's in soccer camp. My daughter's in dance camp. You know, I'm doing a podcast. I just got off doing the Barbershop Sports Talk podcast with Maestro. Shout out to my guy Maestro. I told somebody the other day, I said, look, I know football's, you know, right around the corner. You invite me to a kickoff party, I'm rocking Knicks gear at the kickoff party. That's how, like, so insufferable I am this off season. So y'all look out. NFL, y'all look out. I'm gonna be rocking Knicks gear at y'all parties.
Exactly.
What's going on, crew?
We good. What's your thoughts on just what the Knicks have done in the offseason? And, you know, as Geoff, you know, eloquently pointed out, just the constraints that the Knicks are under, trying to build a team that can continue to compete in the changing landscape with the constraints of the second apron. And your thoughts on, you know, what's happened so far with the Knicks.
So I thought Dolan was playing with us when he came out, you know, took the trophy and said, hey, you know, we may not be going above that second apron. And I thought, oh, he's just playing around. But he was right. He was right, because to keep Mitchell Robinson, that's what they were going to have to do. And I kind of knew Mitch was gone anyway. I think at his stage of his career, he's given us everything he had. You know, he's one of the longest, if not the longest, Knick on the roster at that point, until he signed the deal with Boston. You know, I wish him all the best in the world. I just hate that he went to that team. That's the part that really kind of, you know, I don't like about it, but I understand that, you know, he had to do what he had to do, take the money elsewhere and go, you know, establish himself elsewhere. As far as what the moves that they've made, to be able to keep Alvarado, who was a big component of the run, I think is great. I think the fact that they were able to get Andre Drummond from Philly, and I know he was a free agent and everything, not a trade, but the fact that, you know, he's going to be replacing Mitchell Robinson, and I know there's comparisons out there, but here's the thing that I think people don't understand with Andre Drummond. He's not what he used to be, right? You know, going back to his Detroit days. But I've noticed while he was in a Philly uniform, he'd be behind that three-point line from time to time. And he can drill those threes. Not saying that you're going to count on him to knock shots down. Not saying that teams are going to game plan for Andre Drummond behind the three-point line. But the fact that he can bring that part of his game to the table, unlike what Mitch was able to do, I think that's a plus for us in terms of getting Andre Drummond on the team. Elsewhere on the team, yeah, I like the fact that we're able to keep Landry Shamet. He's coming off of a great playoff run as well. But I think you said something, Steph, and going back to teams that go back to back and what it takes to go back to back. I've noticed this from teams that, win back to back championships. They do it differently from the first year to the second year. Like they go about it in different ways. And so I'm wondering, for this team to have a chance at repeating as champions, what's the one thing that's going to be different about this team that's going to be the driving force to them going back to back? Is it going to be Josh Hart getting moved back to the bench and maybe a Deuce starting or somebody else starting? Could that be the thing? Because that was a topic of conversation a couple of years ago. This starting five, they don't start well. It's not a very good, where your two best players, aren't good defenders or great defenders. I think that conversation is still going to take place again next year. So is it going to be that where Hart comes off the bench and he gives you that energy off the bench? Time will tell. And it could be other things that, this team goes about differently in terms of trying to go back to back. I think the mistake that the past 7 champions have done was not being able to find that new thing that's going to get them to go, back to back. With the Nuggets, it was losing Michael Porter Jr., Bruce Brown. With the Celtics, it's losing Drew Holiday, Al Horford, Kristaps Porzingis. With the Thunder, it was injuries to key guys, to guards, coming off the bench. So you just never know with these things. The NBA is a different league right now. There's no dynasty, but the Knicks certainly have their chance to, prove that wrong.
That is a great point. And I think the Knicks found some things in the playoffs, because this was a team that this is who we aspired them to be. This is who we thought they could be in the regular season. And they didn't find it until the playoffs, right? There was glimpses of their ceiling. And then in the playoffs, they just hit it and just stayed there. But I think there was glimpses, at least in my opinion, of things that they can carry into next season that they discovered late. Like we talked about the Brunson and Cat connection. We saw it the last few games of the regular season, the pick and roll. Like, why are we just now seeing the two-man game in the pick and roll? Yeah. That's something that maybe we get more of that in the regular season. Maybe that's a bigger part of what we do, and that's part of the change you talk about in terms of doing things differently. But also going through Cat. Remember in the regular season, Brunson was the hub most of the season. It wasn't until game 4 in Atlanta where we mixed it up a little bit and then started using Karl-Anthony Towns as a hub. Maybe we see that now going into the second season, depending on the matchup. Is it Brunson, Cat as the hub, Brunson playing off, or Brunson the hub and everybody else playing off, which is what it's usually been. So I do think there's a lot of meat on the bone, so to speak, in terms of things that we can explore next season to be an even better team. Jeff,
I'll add this too.
Okay,
I'll add this too. What if Mo Diawara steps up and has a bigger role off the bench this year? What if he gets more playing time and Mike Brown sees him as a potential postseason asset? That could be something that can contribute to a potential, two-peat also. We'll see.
But it's more than just getting more time. It's getting more time and breaking out in that time.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So absolutely. If him or Kolek or any of these young players break out and become more than a fringe role player, that definitely boosts the Knicks, like OG did. OG came out of nowhere, and I wouldn't say out of nowhere, but really leveled up his game to help the Knicks win this championship. And coming into the season, we'll talk about this during the review, I didn't think That's not something I was thinking about in terms of OG's role. Geoff, anything you want to add?
Well, I first of all, great points by Trey, and so what I'm thinking about also, Trey, is that Josh Hart has got a team option for next year at about $22 million. So he's contract extension eligible. Same way with Karl Anthony Towns, right? And so if the Knicks are looking big picture long term, and I know that they are, eventually, if you're going to stay under the second apron, one of those starters has to move. Like, it's not a question of if, it's a certainty, because they're at the point where just the five of them together is making $200 million roughly, and the second apron is 221 or so. So that means you have $21 million on 9 players. It just becomes unsustainable at that point unless you are going to go over the second apron, which they may. It may be that they're just delaying that as long as they possibly can. But I think that one of the two of the key storylines this summer is what happens with the Josh Hart extension, what happens with the Karl Anthony Towns extension, because that's going to give us a picture of salary certainty and kind of where our heads are at as far as what our plans are for the future. And I think that maybe will answer some of the questions that you have. Does he stay in the starting lineup? Does he maybe move to, do they kind of play with his role a little bit to see if they can move off of him a little bit and have Diawara take on some of that responsibility, or somebody else, not necessarily just him. I mean, Landry Shamet started some games last year and did a decent job. So there are other, and not that the starting lineup was bad last year. I don't think it was the way plus minus wise that it was 2 years ago under Thibodeau. So I'm not sure that there's necessarily the urgency to make that change. But I think that's definitely something that, as you astutely pointed out, that we have to keep an eye on moving forward, because at some point you have to make the decision, how long do we keep all of this core together? And OG Anunoby's got an extension, and so does Brunson the year after that. And so all of this stuff kind of builds on itself, and it makes the decision to not keep Mitchell Robinson that much more understandable. When it's put in that context, it's not about the Knicks being cheap. It's about the price of poker going up. And oh, by the way, in a sense, the Knicks didn't do themselves any favors, because when they went 16-3 in the playoffs, it reduced NBA revenues. And so the salary cap is actually lower because the Knicks were so dominant than it would have been if they had taken every series to 7 games, which is very fascinating.
Do you believe that, though?
Oh, it's definitely true, because it's revenue based.
It's revenue based. The league would have made more money if the series would have went longer.
Did they say this when the Warriors went 4-4-4, whatever the year that was? Did they mention this?
Well, remember, the television deal just got signed, so there was a big spike in the cap that year in spite of it, right? Because I'm pretty sure that was the season that's how they were able to get a KD, remember? Because they had that big spike in the cap because they and I'm not even sure if that's the same collective bargaining agreement that it was now, not, which affects things as well. So
I think that was why they made sure this time around that wouldn't happen, where there was a big bump, that it would be level. The increases would be more level from year to year.
But I want to point to this too. You were talking about losing revenue. I think the fact that some of these playoff games, and not the Knicks games, but like the games in general, most of the games was on Prime and only Prime. Not everybody's got Prime. I know there's a consensus of people that have it, and I know the numbers are what the numbers are, but they haven't adopted the NFL approach where if it's Knicks Hawks on Prime, air the game on Fox 5 locally. You know what I'm saying? Like they do with the NFL. Like, I think if they adopt that, where you just, you keep it on streaming, but in the local markets or where the team is playing, put it on one of the local channels, then I think you'll start to see some of that revenue go up. That's just my opinion.
100%. I think that's a great point.
Yeah. There was a point I wanted to make, and of course it's
well, I could give you time to get it back, because I wanted to respond to what Geoff said.
Okay.
Because Geoff, you mentioned something about Karl Anthony Towns and the ability to keep him and a few other guys, maybe 2-3 years from now. I think what you said might explain why the Knicks approached the draft the way they approached the draft, because they passed up on players, they got some picks. I mean, they eventually got a player or two in the draft, but they were trading back, multiple times, and they were able to get picks, for moving back. I'm thinking about a situation in Minnesota where what if this Ant-Man LaMelo Ball combination doesn't work out and it doesn't equal a championship for them? And what does Ant-Man, think about how Minnesota approaches the future? He could be on his way out. The Knicks will have the assets to pull a trade off to where you could bring Ant-Man to the team, and now you're being able to continue the chances of the Knicks contending for championships. There's other examples out there of players that might, that may be on the move. And I think their approach in the draft was more so forward thinking than it was,
Absolutely.
hey, we got to get we got to get somebody. Like we got to have, it's got to be a player, right? So, to your point about, thinking about what they're going to do with Cat and some other players moving forward, I think what they did in the draft, I think they're setting up for that.
Well, and to add kind of a little bit of sauce to your sandwich here, I agree with that. And what you're looking at with the difference between late first round picks and early second round picks is guaranteed contracts, right? And that's one of the things that we've noticed with Paycom Daddier, even though to his credit, he took a little bit less to stay with the Knicks and sign as a first rounder, which is probably one of the reasons why he's here over some more talented players, if you want to know the truth. But what I mean to say is that when you have the 25th pick, that's a guaranteed salary and a slot of $3 million plus that may be money that you need to play with and toy with. And so absolutely, I think that the other thing about staying under the second apron is keeping that 7-year distant draft pick from being frozen, right? Because that's one of the penalties that comes along. I think you've got to have it 2 years in a row for that to take effect. I could be wrong on that part of it, but I know that is one of the penalties. And if we are going to make a trade for one of these other players and reformulate the core of our team, then you're going to have to be able to have that flexibility to use those draft picks. And you also want to have the flexibility to aggregate salaries in a trade, which is something that you can't do when you're over the second apron either. So I think that your thinking is right on the mark, Trey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I do. Geoff, I know you have an article on, that you wrote today in your blog on the second apron. Do you want to just briefly tell us about it? The description. His link is in the show description. It's also underneath his name. Daily or almost daily. I think it's daily sports.
It's daily.
Blog.
Yeah.
But Geoff, just talk a little bit about, because we're hearing a lot about the Knicks are just being cheap. The Knicks are not appreciating Mitchell Robinson after all he's done for the organization. But to what you and Trey is talking about, the Knicks are forward thinking. The Knicks are thinking 2-3 years down the line, and the salary cap and other factors are impacting the decisions that they're making.
100%. So what you have is that there are a lot of onerous penalties for being over the second apron, and then some of it has to do with how you can acquire players in a trade. Like if you're over the first apron, I don't know if you know this or not, but you, instead of being able to match salary to 125%, you can only do it to 110%. So that means you have to be much more dollar for dollar in your trade that you have. If you're over the second apron, like I just said, you can't even aggregate salaries in a trade. So if you get to the deadline and somebody is hurt, and you're going to have to find someone who matches an exact salary if you want to make a move. And that can be very difficult to do, especially when teams know that you're in a crunch. That's going to cost you extra draft capital, other things that we don't necessarily have. Other penalties include if you're in that second apron for multiple years, you get your draft pick 7 years out frozen. And not only can it be frozen, it could be moved to the very back of the draft. So that means that regardless of your record, you could have gone 22-60 that year. Forget about the lottery, forget about all the new rules, because you were in the second apron for the multiple years in a row. You automatically get the last pick of the first round, and you can't even trade it. And so that inhibits maneuverability quite a bit, and so there's a lot that goes into it as far as the intricacies of it, and so another thing is when you have players on the buyout market, right? We saw that this year when we were able to sign Jeremy Sohan. Well, we were able to do that because we were under the second apron. If you go above the second apron, you're not allowed to acquire those guys anymore. And so even at the second apron status, there's limits. If you're at the first apron, there are even limits. If a guy makes over the mid-level exception, which was like $14 million this year, if he gets bought out, we wouldn't have been able to sign him. So it was a low salary guy. So we were able to add him to the roster. But all of these little things, which may not seem like much, just moves around the margins, but moves at the margins are what gave us Jose Alvarado. And I'm not sure if we win the championship if we can't make those little bit moves. Remember, it was Yabusele waiving his no trade clause that got us Dalen Terry, I'm wanting to say, and then Dalen Terry and picks or something like that. So there was machinations there that happened that you need to be under the second apron to be able to pull off those sorts of trades.
And how, just for the audience who may not be aware, how did that impact the decision not to re-sign Mitchell Robinson? I don't think that was 100%, but I don't know if it was 100% of the decision, but I think it was a big part of the decision not to re-sign Mitchell Robinson.
It was a huge part of the decision, because what you ended up happening is we got 4 players for the price of Robinson. If you think about it, we were able to bring back Clarkson, we were able to bring back Alvarado, we were able to bring back Landry Shamet, and we were able to sign Mo Diawara for the same price as 1 year of Mitchell Robinson. You could have brought back Mitchell Robinson if you wanted to, but you basically would have had to gut your bench depth to do it, because we would have needed to make all of those second round picks that we had and sign each of those guys to minimum $1.5 million salary. So that means your entire bench, not just 3 or 4 guys, your entire bench is second round picks who have never played a game before. That you could have done that and kept Robinson, but that doesn't make a whole lot of sense in terms of maintaining continuity for your roster. And so what the Knicks were able to do the way that they did it, Andre Drummond is not Mitchell Robinson, but he replicates the statistical profile of Robinson enough that you hope that he fits. And oh, by the way, the same criticisms that were levied at Karl Anthony Towns before the season about his defense, about being too slow and too rigid and can't guard on the perimeter. Well, a lot of that stuff proved untrue this season for the first time. Andre Drummond was a good defender in the past. As Trey rightly pointed out, he's not the athlete that he was in his time in Detroit, but that's not to say that he can't become better defensively than he was in Philadelphia last year, for example. I'm just saying. And so you have to make choices, and the Knicks know that eventually the ship is moving, the gravity is moving further and further and further toward being a second apron team. And so eventually we've got to make decisions on contract extensions for almost all of these guys. It's Towns and Towns is coming up first along with Hart, but then OG and Brunson are next, and then Bridges is actually under contract for the longest. Eventually, if we're going to keep all 5 starters together, they're going to have to. It's just going to become a necessity to be over that second apron. Another possibility is that we do what the Celtics did and shed 2 or 3 of those players and, bring in less talented, lower salary players, duck the second apron, and then, try and maneuver around another way. But I don't think that, I mean, Boston had a great regular season, but I don't think anybody thinks that they're closer to a championship roster than they were when they had KP and Horford and all of those folks. I don't think anybody's making that argument, especially now that they dealt Jaylen Brown. But and we'll see how that works out for him. But it's very difficult in this climate, and intentionally so. The NBA wants parity. They don't want these dynasty teams, and the last dynasty team is the Warriors from almost a decade ago. And what we saw is, before that, we saw lots of dynasties. Like the Lakers began the century with 3 in a row, I'm pretty sure, and then, well, the next 7 years didn't have one per se, but the Spurs won 3 of those championships. Mm-hmm. And then it was the Heat's turn, et cetera, et cetera. And so the league has worked really hard to make it difficult to repeat. And so you have to have this balancing act. And part of that balancing act is salary flexibility. You don't want to lock yourself into a lineup because of injuries, right? If you sign Mitch to that extension they did, and then he gets hurt and goes down, what's the next pivot point at that point? I mean, that's a difficult question to answer.
Yeah, I want to get to this. Shout out to the chat. I want to get to the chat as well. Really good things add to the discussion. Doubled 8086. What it boils down to is that if you give your first, second, and third option, as well as the other 2 starters, 85% of the cap, that leaves peanuts left for the remaining 10 players. I've said this for a few years now. The Knicks have to figure out who their core is. And I don't think the core can be the entire starting lineup, right? I think the Knicks are going to have to look what happened in Boston. Those 2 guys took up 60% of the cap. Mm-hmm. And it was very difficult for them to build out a competitive team. Now, the Knicks were able to do it with their starters taking up, I don't know how much percentage of the cap. But is this going to be going forward as they take more of the cap, right? Brunson's extension is going to be more than he's making now. Cat's extension is going to be more than he's making now. And yes, the cap is going to go up. But I'm still thinking the aggregate percentage for these guys is probably going to go up more than the cap, each year. So the Knicks are going to have to make some decisions. I think you're probably going to keep 3 of those guys long term, in my opinion. If you want to fill out a competitive, this team is competitive, so I don't want to say a competitive team, but a team that has the flexibility to compete for years, right? Let's see. Let's see what they do. I do have a super chat, and then you could follow up, Trey. Mm-hmm. Jason Benjamin, why are some so down on Diawara? His minutes during the last season were productive. Also, he's already a phenomenal defensive player at 21. Very strong, too. Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think you can go by summer league, right? He's not playing with veteran guys. This team particularly, most summer teams are being thrown together. I don't think you can really judge him on the summer league. And the same thing, like Geoff said, with Kolek, who looked terrible last year in summer league, but then gave us some really good minutes during the regular season. So I'm with you, Jason Benjamin, on that. But I will say, I don't think he was a phenomenal defensive player. I think, he has the defensive tools, but he gets lost in the defense. Mm-hmm. I think that's something he's going to have to shore up. But I'm high on Diawara for this season coming up.
I think he's somebody that can do a little bit of everything. Like, he can get to the basket, he could shoot threes, he could rebound, he could play some defense. I don't know that he's phenomenal at any one of those particular traits, but you saw him on the floor for moments throughout the regular season, and he was doing a little bit of everything. He's just not elite at it. And I think that just comes with developmental skills. I think he's still in the developmental phase right now. And I think his ceiling is, just as high. I don't think we've seen the best of him yet. I think we're going to get an opportunity to see him be better this year than last year. But I think the best is yet to come for this guy.
I I hope so. I do think he has a high ceiling, but that floor is also shaky. You know, like you
Yeah,
don't really know
yeah.
what you're gonna get from game to game. But that's to be expected from a young player, right? So, when I say I'm high on him, I should say I'm looking forward to see how he, how he develops. Um, Anything on the summer league real brief before we get into the what we really came here for to kind of remember the season. Anything on summer league? I'm gonna tell you real quick. I saw one half of summer league that was tonight, and I don't get excited about young players. Year 3 for me is when I start to really see what a player can be. I've seen players. Listen, I've been a Knicks fan for over 40 years. We really hyped about these players, and they hardly ever pan out. So I can't really get hyped. Year 3, right? This is Kolik's coming up year 3, or is this 4? This is 3 for Kolik, right?
Year three.
Okay,
Year
Kolik,
3.
Daddy A. All right, let's see. Now I want to see what's going on. Frazier, your thoughts on summer league?
I'm gonna keep it more realer with you, Steph.
Mhm.
I've watched no summer league games whatsoever. I might have seen some highlights here and there of teams throughout the league, but I gotta be honest with you, because my son has been so deep in soccer camp. The World Cup has been on my TV quite a bit in the household, so
Mhm.
I'm gonna be honest. I've not watched 1 minute of summer league.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
on that note, I gotta roll.
Okay, we appreciate you.
Yeah, for certain. I appreciate you both. Always giving me the opportunity and the platform
Anytime.
to talk, and we'll catch up later in the off season.
We will.
And y'all enjoy the rest of the summer. Be safe, stay cool.
All right.
Thanks
Yes,
for upping the level of the show, man. As always.
Yeah,
No doubt.
appreciate it.
All right.
Peace. Yeah, I actually, it's my fault. The Knicks are 1-3 in summer league. The only game that they won, I watched, and I didn't watch the other 3. So clearly, if I had watched the other ones, we would be 4-0. But I like some of the things I saw from Cahill. I think that Jack Cahill is a guy that he's not NBA ready by any of the stretch of the imagination, but he's a guy who's worth investing in the G League. I think Nickel has a skill that translates right away in his ability to shoot. He doesn't look like a traffic cone defensively. So again, you're talking about an end of the roster G League type contract. I think that's fine. I don't think that there's anybody else on the roster minus Diawara who's going to make any impact on this year's team at all. Diawara didn't have a great summer league when the time that he played, but I don't know. I think that may be as much of he's being expected to be the focal point as opposed to being a role player. Right. And I think with some guys, and I thought we saw that with Kolek last year in the regular season, when teams can't focus on him and he's just allowed to reign free and kind of do the things he does best. It's one thing versus, the defense is keyed in on him. They're ready for him. They're trying specifically to stop him. That you can't do that with what the Knicks do. So as a healthy NBA roster. So I'm not overly worried about his lack of performance in the summer league. I think he's going to be fine. I think that Trey said it best. He's kind of a guy with a lot of different skills that he can put to the table, but none that are elite. But Josh Hart's kind of that way too. So, maybe, again, not this year, but maybe when you have to make the decision on Josh Hart, maybe Mo steps into that role and is able to fill it, maybe even just at 80%. But eventually you're going to need some of these back of the roster guys to step up in bigger roles and succeed in them, or you're going to have to change the core significantly just because you have to for salary reasons. Like it's not sustainable moving forward. So it's one or the other.
Yeah, for sure. Before we get to remembering the season that changed everything, I do want to just go through some of the chat. Appreciate you. G Money was in the house. We are champs of the basketball world. That's a fact. That's a fact. Greg thinks teammates are hating on double nickel. 30 plus minutes, only 6 attempts. Okay. Rookie Robbins is a good center. All right. Okay. Appreciate you.
Well, I'll say to that what I said on Twitter is you can bask in Robbins if you want to.
Shout out to Coach. Appreciate you dropping by. Vaughn Allen. They aren't complacent and approach every game with the right mindset. Perfect candidates to go back to back. Appreciate you. Mo is going to get traded. Watch. Listen, anything is possible. If the right deal comes along, that's going to help the team and they want Mo Diawara. If the Knicks, feel that it'll help the team, they'll trade him. I don't think they signed him to shop him. I think it would have to be the right deal. Geoff, feel free to weigh in on any of this. Humberto de la Hoz, please be more grateful. The Knicks need nothing. And please stop imagining trading anyone. I disagree. I disagree. And it doesn't mean I don't think the Knicks are a really, really good team. I just think that your team has to change as the landscape changes. I don't think you have to, because you win the championship, that you just bottle that team up. And no matter who gets traded around you, no matter how the rosters improve around you, because you won the championship, you good. I just don't believe it. Now, from what I've seen, the changes that's been made, I think the Knicks are good. But I don't think, as you talked about, going into the second apron and freezing that roster and making it really difficult to make changes as the landscape is changing around. I don't think that's a good move, right? But from what I'm seeing now, the Knicks still have flexibility. And I think the Knicks have the best starting lineup, if not one of the best starting lineups in the entire league.
And you always have to have that potential to get better. I don't think that it's ever a case of because other teams are improving and they are going to copy your model if they can, right? They're going to and teams are going to gear up. Guess what? To stop the Knicks specifically. And I think the Indiana Pacers are a team that's shown historically the ability to do that quite well over the last couple of years. So I think you're going to see teams try and emulate the model that they and the Oklahoma City Thunder also have used over the last couple of years. And those types of rosters aren't easy to come up with, but teams are upgrading their talent level across the board. And if we just stand pat, that means we move backwards. That doesn't mean we still can't win, but it makes it more difficult. So I think you always have to be looking to improve, even if what you have is the best. I think that's what's the mark of long-term sustainable winning, as opposed to, just being a one and done, which is what we've seen over the last 7-8 years of the NBA.
Yeah, that's a fact. Nick Yak, Cat won't take less, but Mitch getting killed for not signing for $5 million. I'll say this for everybody. I didn't hear this. I know some people didn't like seeing Mitch sign with Boston, the enemy, so they say. But I don't know if he's getting killed for chasing the money. I didn't really see that. Listen, Mitchell Robinson don't owe the Knicks anything, right? And the Knicks don't owe Mitchell Robinson anything. This is part of, the business of the NBA. But people that are out there feeling like Mitchell Robinson should not have signed with Boston, that is some sort of disloyalty. Well, how loyal were the Knicks to Mitchell Robinson? They didn't sign him. Matter of fact, you can argue that it was, asset mismanagement and not even trading him before he got to free agency. Now, maybe they tried and they weren't able to get what they wanted. Maybe they felt that him being on the roster with the roster flexibility to help win a championship was more than, was worth letting him get to free agency and walking. But I'm not killing Mitchell Robinson from, like, there's a difference between basketball and life. You get an opportunity to secure the bag for yourself and your family, you do it. I'm not signing with Boston because they're the enemy. Like, we cannot be serious about that. But yeah, I mean, seeing him, in Boston, but the Knicks had to know that was a possibility when you allowed him to get to free agency.
And but again, it's a tricky situation because Mitch was so unhealthy, right? They literally had to baby him along, right? He didn't play any back-to-backs. They were very cautious with his minutes and everything, and it worked out. But I'm not even sure he's going to start in Boston. Like, I'm not sure that he has the starting spot guaranteed over Queta. I think he'll play quite a bit, but I think that's very much going to be a 50-50 center rotation and maybe a 40-40-20 because I think they like that kid Garza quite a bit too. And so, you're talking about a guy. We have Karl Anthony Towns, all NBA player at center. There's limited minutes for Robinson, even if he's here, because he's definitely not playing the 4. You can play the double big lineup some, but again, during the playoffs with his free throw shooting, which, career maybe 50%, but last couple years has been down at 30. And that makes him unplayable at certain stretches of the game, which limits his minutes allocation even further. And to Queen's point, I think it's valid to say that his defense hasn't been as consistently on the elite level that we saw it when we played against Boston a couple years ago and beat them, when we played against Philly, when we played against Cleveland in that series when we beat them in the first round. So I think all of those things are factors when it comes into it, and so, in a perfect world we get to keep Mitchell Robinson, but we don't live in the perfect world. We live in the current CBA world, and so you have to make tough choices, and they said, well, we can keep all these guys plus get Andre Drummond, who gives us approximately the same stats, even though he's not as good a player. Then just sign the one player and then gut the rest of your depth. I mean, those are the two opportunities if you're going to stay under the second apron, and I think it's wise to stay under the second apron because we're not the only ones doing it. Oklahoma City Thunder traded away 3 rotation players this offseason. Wiggins, Williams, I think, and one other one I can't think of. But so they're losing good quality players as well. As Isaiah Joe, I think, was one of them, right. And I can't remember.
Yeah.
And so, but anyway, those are all three guys who were rotation players that are not part of their team any longer because they wanted to keep Isaiah Hartenstein. They have these issues as well. It's a reality for everyone, and until it changes, you really have to be careful about what you're doing. And I think teams are going to be avoiding the second apron like the plague, no matter who they are now.
Yeah. I do want to piggyback off of that, but shout out to Dripmore. Dripmore, I saw you. Dripmore has a channel. Apparently, he's a barber. Let me know where your barbershop. I need to get lined up too. And I couldn't hear him, but he was on live in his barbershop, with his client. Man, that if you were talking Knicks, that would have been you might have been. That's a great show in the barbershop with your clients talking Knicks. I definitely peeped you. Listen, 2 things can be true. We appreciate Mitchell Robinson for what he brought to the New York Knicks during the time that he was here. He was here through the lean years, the dog days, multiple coaches, and he got an opportunity to see this all the way through and get a ring. And I am so happy for him in that regard. I'm also happy that he got paid. With this collective bargaining agreement, it's not easy to get paid, and he got paid, and that's great. But the flip side of it, is everything Geoff is talking about. You can't spend even $13 million on a player that's going to be playing 12 to 17 minutes a game behind Karl-Anthony Towns, right? Karl-Anthony Towns is the starting center on this team. So people who want to just gut the bench to play Mitch, because we're going to have, as Nick Yak said, a really good center tandem, and we would. But your bench now is McBride and Robinson and Mo and, whoever else you can sign, second round picks. No, you can't do that. You can't do that. So I appreciate Mitch for what he's done. And I got to be honest, and I know this is a very unpopular opinion, but even if the Knicks went over the second apron, I still would not have re-signed Mitch to that money. I still would not have done it, given the injury history, given how we had to baby him, no back-to-backs, all of that to get him to the playoffs, and the fact that he only plays 17 minutes a game. And, as Geoff mentioned, that I mentioned before the show started, Mitch has not been the consistent defensive player that we remember. Let's call a spade a spade. Kudos for him for getting one of the biggest offensive rebounds in New York Knicks history when he got that offensive rebound off of the Josh Hart miss to help seal the deal. Plus minus, on-off numbers have not been kind to Mitchell Robinson in the playoffs. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. But even to the eye test, his defensive contributions were inconsistent, right? And I think a lot of it is riding on the reputation of who he was 2 and 3 years ago. And he wasn't that for us last season. And so you have to take going into the second apron, roster restrictions, injury history, his role on the team, because Mike Brown doesn't seem to be a double big guy. His role on the team, opportunity lost, because now you can't sign Alvarado and Clarkson and all these other players. You have to take all of that into consideration. It was the right move for the Knicks. And Drummond, listen, I would have liked it a more defensive-minded center. I really would have. But at the end of the day, it's not about replacing Mitchell Robinson. It's about finding the backup center for Karl-Anthony Towns, who's the starting center on this team. Nobody's talking about. It's finding his backup to pay 12 to 17 minutes a game, not to replace Mitchell Robinson. Like, that's the reframe, in my opinion. We'll see how it goes. I mean, the fact that we have this flexibility means the Knicks can pivot, if they need to. All right, just a few more, because I do want to get to the season review remix, different than how we usually do it. David Albaya, second apron isn't about money. It's about restrictions and not being able to move. Nick Yak, I just wanted to keep Mitch and go for the repeat. But Nick Yak, how are you going for the repeat by just keeping Mitch if you lose the rest of your bench?
I think he's saying re-sign everybody else anyway and just
go. Okay. Okay.
Go.
And so, in other words, re-sign everybody, go over the second apron. Okay, I got it. We know we are going over when Brunson gets paid and Bridges and Cat go up with the contracts they have. Okay, I got you.
But that's the reason why not to go this year, right? Because when the penalties really get severe, when it's multiple years in a row in that apron. So you want to delay it as long as you possibly can.
Yeah. Greg, if you feel the panel is cooking, then why are we not hitting the like button? That's right. David Albaya, we can still repeat without Mitch. Cat hasn't proved that much. Listen, that's another thing in terms of meat on the bone. Will Cat be the player in the regular season that he was in the playoffs defensively? We shall see. Okay.
And offensively, for that matter, is he going to be the player that he was in the playoffs? In other words, because that raises the ceiling of the team. Also, if we can score and give that extra look, I think that can be potentially really dangerous too. And that's another way to improve internally. And if that can be consistent, that makes us much more difficult to deal with. Also,
Yeah, for sure. Sadu Barry, I hope I got that right. 50-50 Drummond offense and defense. You know what I'm hoping? That he understands the assignment. He comes in the best shape of his life and has one of the best seasons that he's had in a while. Right? Wiz BKLA, what's up, Wiz? Cap space will also go up each season. But that's what I said. I don't know if it's going to go up enough for 5 contract extensions.
but the other problem is it's not, the cap hasn't even been keeping pace with the salary increases. Like the salary increases have been like 8% raises per year. Well, the cap hasn't been going up by 8% every year like it did early on with the television revenue spike. The revenues have been rather flat. And because the revenues have been rather flat, the cap has kind of been like the number for the second apron this year isn't significantly different than it was last year. Well, that number is based upon the overall number of the salary cap, which is pretty much in line with what it was. I think a lot of teams were expecting that the cap would kind of grow by 10% per season, which would outpace the raises and give them a little bit extra. But actually what's happened is the reverse of that.
Yeah. Cap space will also go up each season to make room for our bench salaries and Brunson's contract. Hart should stay the same, so only Mikal will eventually be an issue. Brunson, Mikal, OG expire in 2029. Okay. Randu, I don't want Nick Richards. I do not want to let go of an injury-prone center to get another one. Okay. All right. Tory B1, we swept through our competition. So, yes, his minutes were down. So using those minutes is a bit unfair. Everyone's minutes were down. Now, I get that. But even in the regular season, Mitchell Robinson didn't play a lot of minutes. He played about, 17 minutes a game this season.
Numbers went down in the playoffs.
It went down to 13 in the playoffs. But even then, I said 17 in the regular season. So you can't, and to me, in this CBA, you cannot pay a backup center playing 17 minutes a game $15 million a year. You just can't, in my opinion.
Not if you. The only way you can do it is if you have other guys who are on rookie contracts, like a VJ Edgecombe or someone like that, right, where you have, you know what I mean. You're not having to pay him full starter salary. That's part of the Knicks' problem is every one of our starters is making $22 million at a minimum, and Cat's up near 60, right? And if you think Cat's automatic salary is going down, that's not necessarily the case. I mean, he's going to be negotiating from a position of strength with the season that he's just had and the sacrifices that he made. So it's possible that his new contract is even bigger than the one that he opts out of, which next year he's due to make like 61, I think. So, and he's still in the center of his prime. So he's probably going to get a big number contract for his final big deal, or maybe not even his final big deal. He may have one more big deal after that if he stays in shape.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Just a rumor, Queen, you didn't see Andre at the Summer Games. That boy lost a lot of weight and he looks like a totally different person. He's ready. All right. JM3000, Drummond knows this is a blessing for him. He will be ready. Okay. All right. Paris Doug, I know one thing. A motivated Drummond isn't $12 million less of a player than Mitch. Fair. He averaged 19 minutes a game in the regular season. Okay. I'm still not paying that for a $19 million a player. And I just don't think he fits in Mike Brown's system. Like there were games in which he could have played more minutes, that Mike Brown chose not to. Nick Yak, we're going to use Cat more running offense. Will he hold up? Even if we don't, will he hold up? And will he stay out of foul trouble? I mean, that is fair about, that backup center Drummond. If they bring in somebody else, you got to be able to play some extended minutes at times when Cat gets into foul trouble. All right, Geoff.
Well, interestingly,
Yes.
Robinson did really very much, even in the games where Cat was in serious foul trouble, and we saw those in the NBA Finals. Even you didn't see huge minute total from Robinson even then, and when you did, his plus minus numbers weren't very good.
Yeah, but I will say, let's not forget. And like I said, Mitchell Robinson has these moments in these games, so nobody is saying that he doesn't. Cat was in foul trouble in Game 5. Sometimes I get the games mixed up. Correct me if I'm wrong. And I believe fouled out in Game 5. Was it Game 5 or 4? I think that was 5.
Remember.
And Mitchell Robinson did a yeoman's job while Cat was in foul trouble. So I'm not banging on Mitchell Robinson and saying he's not a good player.
We don't win the championship without him. I'm convinced of that. He was part of that group and an integral part. That's the thing about this team. It was a team. It was all even 12, 13 guys deep. Even Tyler Kolek had his moments, and he didn't play a minute in the finals. So it was a genuine team effort, and they needed every single piece to get to where they needed to, and he was every bit as much a part of that as anybody else, and he deserves all the credit. He deserves the ring. He deserves the championship, and he deserves the pay raise, if you want to know the truth.
Facts. Right. But it doesn't mean that the Knicks should go into the second apron to keep him. All right. Let's I was thinking about, doing a season review, and obviously we can't give grades like we would do in any other season, because when you win the championship, everybody gets an A. Like, you graded on a curve, as Geoff said, everybody gets an A. We won the chip. So this is more about just kind of reviewing who we thought our X factor was, and did that hold true? Was Mike Brown, who we thought, he would be? Questions like that in terms of reviewing the season, other than, what grade you're going to give, whoever, Miles McBride. All right. So let's start. Back in October, Geoff, what did you honestly expect from this team? And at what point did your expectations change? I'm going to answer this real quick. I thought they could win a championship. I saw them through the season, and I had my doubts. I said, I'm not sure of this team. My expectations changed the other way, from very good chance to I don't think it's going to be this year. And then changed again in the playoffs once they got on the run. But go ahead, Geoff.
Yeah, I kind of went through the same ride, so to speak. Before the season began, I expected it certainly to be a top 2 seed in the East. I expected, to win 53 to 55 games, somewhere in that neighborhood, but be a top 2 seed in the East easily, to win the division, to be better than the Celtics. And then as the season went along, I was like, well, this doesn't really have the feel of that kind of team. Not that, I mean, they did win 53 games, but that only getting you to the 3rd seed kind of felt like, I just don't know that this team has enough. And then you're down 2 games to the Hawks, and you're really like, what are we doing here? And then they just flipped the switch, and I mean, greatest month of basketball I've ever seen.
Without question. When we did the playoff preview show, I remember saying I would not be surprised if this team lost in the second round. Like, that's how inconsistent they were. I was like, I hope they get to the Eastern Conference Finals, but if they lose in the second round, I would not be surprised. And they went in the second, and they went into the playoffs in Game 4 and just turned it up. You know, what surprised you the most? Go ahead. You were going to say something, Jeff?
Yeah, I think for me, what I was going through was I kind of had this expectation when the season began that OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges would kind of elevate the team, not necessarily like just really be strong. And then we didn't see a consistency from either one of those guys in terms of those aspects, especially from an offensive standpoint. And then, especially in the first 3 games of the playoffs, it's like Mikhail's on the back of a milk carton, and you're like, what's happening? Why did we trade all these picks for this guy who can't even stay on the court in the fourth quarter of a playoff game? And then all of a sudden, things changed. And one of the things that changed, and you piggybacked on this early on, was OG Anunoby. OG Anunoby took a step in those playoffs. He was phenomenal. He was outrageously good. He was a genuine third option, possibly the second option, because he was actually the second leading scorer on the team in the postseason ahead of Towns. And I'm not putting him ahead of Towns because I think Cat's contribution was outstanding throughout the playoffs, and so I don't want to diminish what Towns did, but at the same time, I really feel like OG stepped his game up a level in the postseason to a place it hadn't really been before. He had seen glimpses of it, like before he pulled his hamstring in Game 3 against the Pacers a couple years before. He was having one of those nights. I think he had like 28 points in 27 minutes or something like that, and he was just cooking. And so we had seen glimpses of it when he first got here that January before Mitch got hurt. His plus minus numbers were like through the roof, it was like plus 80, plus 90. It felt like every time he was in the game, like we just steamrolled everyone. So we had seen it in spots, and then his ability to make tough 3-point shots, contested 3-point shots against good defense, his ability to get to the rim and finish against long players, all of these things that we hadn't ever seen on a consistent basis. He did it time after time after time in the playoffs, and he was the piece that we were missing. It was his elevation to a legitimate 2A, second, third option that changed the ceiling of this team. In my opinion.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback off of that with the second question, which is what surprised you the most about this championship season? And that includes not just the playoffs, the entire season. And what surprised me the most, to piggyback off of what you just said, was the evolution of OG Anunoby. Now, he showed flashes. So it's not like he came out of nowhere. Like, he showed flashes. His defense was pretty consistent. Offense was coming along, but the level to which he got throughout the season and into the playoffs, to me, was the biggest surprise of the championship season. We talked about his handle. We talked about him always falling down. We talked about, can he create a shot? And he showed all of it in the playoffs. All of it in the playoffs. Facing his guy up, the little jab step, pull-up jumper, driving, turnaround jumper, the corner threes, going coast to coast, blocking shot. I mean, he showed everything. And we talked about this before the season. Who was going to be the number 3? Was this going to be Mikal, Bridges? I just assumed with Bridges' skill set that it would be him. And we were even like, would Bridges even be a number 2? Could he surpass Cat? Right? And here comes OG Anunoby. Hold my beer. I'm about to settle all of this. And you can argue that Bridges has the better game potential, at this point in terms of his game and how much more fluid it is. But the confidence that OG Anunoby has is just through the roof. Like, how many? No. Wow. Oh, you're going to say, no. Oh. He's just like, I'm not listening to any of y'all. I'm confident in my ability. I know what I'm going to do, and I'm going to go with it. he didn't get a lot of space. I mean, he benefited from getting some space from the gravity of Jalen Brunson in the playoffs, but there was still a lot of times when he didn't have a lot of space to get those shots off. And not only did he get them off, he made them, and a few of them was over the outstretched hands of Wemby. Biggest surprise.
Defensive player of the year, by the way, Wemby.
Say that again?
Yeah. Defensive player of the year, Wemby. Like that's not shooting it over just a good. That's like the best defensive player on the planet, and you just drilled a tough 3-pointer in his eye. And the coolest thing is everybody's going to remember the hand of OG for the rest of his life, or the rest of our lives. But if he doesn't block that shot on Fox at the other end, that doesn't even materialize, right? That hustle chase down block that with Fox, it was one of the most incredible defensive plays I've ever seen. It doesn't get talked about the same. I mean, obviously the tip in was just exquisite and divine, and I mean, just the hallmark moment of the playoffs. I mean, it just epitomized everything that was so amazing, but equally as important and almost on brand, right? We expect, OG's going to come up with a big defensive plan, not just blocking the shot, but blocking the shot and getting possession back for the Knicks. There's a difference, right? You just block the shot out of bounds, well, they still retain possession of the ball. If you block the shot and then we get it back, that's a big difference.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Wiz BKLA, last October, I predicted that OG and Mike Brown will be the X factors. I said OG is a number 1 or 2, but was doubted, and I still doubt it. I don't think OG is a number 1 at all. At all. A number 2, maybe. You got to keep in mind with number 1s, who can score when the entire defense is planned for you and geared toward you, right? OG's game has elevated. In my opinion, he's not that dude where if he's at the top, his game, in my opinion, is not at that level yet in terms of his handle and his ability to get his shot off against double teams. When the entire defense is geared towards stopping you, I don't think his offensive game is at that point, and his passing. Because now you got to be able to read what the defense is doing and find the open guy, right? So there's a difference between playing off of a guy and being the guy. I don't think his game is at that point, but he could surprise me, Jeff.
And he gets to play off of 2 guys.
He gets to play off of 2 guys.
I mean, I think JM3000 said it great. OG is a great number 3 on the team. And yeah, he has the second most points, but he doesn't get a lot of those points if Towns isn't the threat that he is and have the gravity that he has. So the gravity of Towns and the gravity of Bridges, not of Bridges, it's Towns and Brunson, rather, are what create the opportunities for OG. And kudos to OG for taking advantage to the fullest of those opportunities when they're presented, because he was phenomenal, especially his 3-point shooting in the postseason was out of this world good.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Is he the biggest surprise of the championship season for you, or would you go in a different direction?
It's hard not for him not to be. I think that, but I would just to attack a different angle and not be repetitive. I would also say that the defense from Towns and Brunson, the defensive effort from both of those guys. Remember, the narrative up until last season was those 2 guys will never play defense well enough to win a championship.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And it is unmistakable that Towns increased his defensive impact in 2025-26. He was much better defensively than he ever has been throughout his career. And Brunson the same way. Brunson did a much better job too. And so both of those guys deserve a lot of credit, not just for their offense and what they do on that side of the floor, but they were good enough defensively that to keep that. And remember, you got to make stops to make those comebacks. So, and those guys saw the majority of the time. So eventually you've got to give them credit for that. So I think that the other big major surprise, I'm going to go with Towns' defensive upgrade in Mike Brown's system. So
you know what, Jeff? You know what, Jeff? We might be talking 1A and 1B, because I will say another big surprise, almost as big as OG Anunoby, was the Knicks going from 568 in defensive rating to being one of the best defensive teams in the entire NBA. Like that to me, that's almost the biggest surprise as OG Anunoby, because listen, in the regular season, I said, look, I don't think this will ever be a top 10 defense. If they can get to 12, maybe, and the offense is clicking, maybe we'll be okay. And who Delusional,
Freezy,
Freezy.
Those are about the only three that I could think of.
There were not only a top 10, one of them said top 5. I said,
and he was right.
Good. Okay. That was also, chat, let us know, what do you think was one of the biggest surprises of this championship season to you? We got OG, we got the Knicks defense, we got Cat's defense. Let us know what you think. What was the turning point in the season? Mike Brown changing the offense, Cat finding his role, Bridges settling in, game 4, the 29 point, whatever,
I think game 4 against the Hawks, you're down 2-1, you're on the road, and it was just a masterclass. Like, not only was it a masterclass, it showed the full potential of this team, and it gave them the confidence in each other. They had suffered through it. They didn't panic. They said, okay, we're going to go with this. We're going to trust our work. We're going to trust our stars. And so, and that from that point forward, like I said, that is the most magical month of basketball. They lost one time in 51 days in the playoffs. Like, are you kidding me? Like, don't disrespect this team. 16-3 after starting 1-2 is, with some of the comebacks they had, but also not just the comebacks, the blowouts. We beat the Sixers 8,055-13 with apologies to my guy DX Relish. Like, we beat them like they stole something. And so our closeout game against the Hawks, we won by like 352 points. Like, stuff that, like, not normal, like, unbelievable teamwork stuff. So that was the moment where the shift happened. Like, so to me, if you're going to label it, and there might have been some before that, because I think at one point after winning the cup, we were like 2-9. We went through a stretch where we really struggled. And so, but I can't pinpoint what the pivot access point where this is the game we kind of figured it out from that point. I don't remember it, and so it's not as significant to me. And so I have to go with the one that stands out to me. And the playoffs are what's important anyway. So to me, that's the pivot point. That's the hallmark moment.
I agree with you, but I think game 4, there was like multiple turning points in game 4. It was how they played in game 4, but it was the change in the game plan from Mike Brown to using Cat as, the hub. And then there was Cat delivering, because you can make that change, and then Cat goes out there and throws the ball away and turns the ball over and falls out of bounds. We know how he gets. But the game plan changed. Cat was stout, and the execution of that game plan in game 4 and the rest of that series and the playoffs was on point. So I agree with you. Game 4 to me was the turning point of the season. But there was so many things wrapped up in game 4. Let's move on to Mike Brown. Did Mike Brown become the coach you thought he would be? What was the biggest thing he changed?
So first of all, the pressure cooker that he volunteered for, right?
Nice.
Because this was the expectation when he took this job, was to do exactly what he did. And so to come into a situation where the expectations are real, you understand those expectations, and you live up to those expectations, man, did he cook. And so even in winning 53 games this year, which was only like one more than than Tibbs won the previous year. So I could be wrong with that, but 1 or 2 more than we had won the previous year. Even in that, the way that he was able to do it, the minutes distribution was way down. It had been cut back. He had experimented with lineups with the rookies and the young players early on, giving Mo Diawara minutes, and he would have been buried on the bench under Thibodeau. Just things like that. And then experimenting when there was also a switch at the last 20 games or so. He didn't play the young guys as much, but he was experimenting with lineups within the starters and how do I fit Jose Alvarado into this mix? How do I, how is Landry Shamet going to fit into this mix? And so I think that he learned a lot of lessons, both from his time with with Greg Popovich in San Antonio. I think he brought a lot of those aspects to the team. And I think he also learned a lot of lessons from his time in Golden State with those teams, as far as what he wanted to do on offense. I think he tried to mimic those things as well. And sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't, but he trusted his process the whole way through. And he really, when it came to the postseason, and maybe it just worked out, right? But all the buttons he seemed to push were the right ones and sometimes you push a button and it causes the whole thing to blow up in your face. But every time he needed a guy to step up, like the one comeback was Jose Alvarado was on the floor for 10 minutes in the fourth quarter, and I think Josh Hart was on the bench, right? So all kinds of different aspects of different players and knowing the timing and trusting the entire roster at different times. I thought his use of Jordan Clarkson was fascinating because Clarkson sat for 2 months. Right, he couldn't get off the bench for 2 months, and then suddenly he reinvented himself as a player. He was much better on the defensive end. He was a killer on the offensive glass when he came back into the lineup, and he still did the Jordan Clarkson thing with his offense, where he gets into the paint and he makes a shot where you're like, no, wow, that was unbelievable. Like that's the Jordan Clarkson experience. But I thought Clarkson was fantastic in his role, which was small to be sure. I mean, he didn't have a lot of minutes, but I think they're important minutes. Jose Alvarado, not a ton of minutes, important minutes, but he trusted them and he implemented them at the right time in the right way. And he has to get some of the credit for that. It's not just the players. When you look at even a guy like Ariel Hukporti comes in the game and gets a key block. I don't even remember which game it was, but I know in one of them, we were in foul trouble. I think both Mitch and he were in foul trouble. I think OG might have had some fouls too. Like the whistle parade was on its way, and he brought Hukporti in, and he made a couple of good plays. Was he lost most of the time he was out there? Yes, but that one block, crucial play in the game. And so, every button he seemed to push worked, and for whatever reason. And so you have to give him credit for that. And he's not a guy who'd ever won a championship as the head coach before. So he outperformed his own history, and he's a guy who got to coach LeBron James in his prime.
Yeah. No doubt about it. I think Mike Brown grew with this team. He grew with the team because I don't want to gloss over the regular season when we questioned why Cat wasn't more of a hub on this team and why he wasn't using Cat to take full advantage of his talents until game 4 of the Atlanta, right? Where we were down 2-1 and pretty much had to go back to the drawing board. So I wouldn't say that everything was hunky-dory with Mike Brown, right? There was times during the regular season when we was like, okay, I get this. I like this. I like the minutes thing. I like him experimenting with lineups. But there was times when we were like, all right, this is game 695. I think there's too much experimenting now. I think we need to start getting, what the rotation is going to be. What's this lineup? What does he do? Why isn't the Cat Brunson 2-man get? So everything, we had we as fans didn't think Mike Brown was perfect, right? We as fans had our criticisms of Mike Brown during the regular season. But you can argue that Mike Brown hit his stride in the playoffs, just like the Knicks hit their stride in the playoffs. Because I noticed 2 things. The game plan was there, and you could see the differences in the different lineups and the different ways we played. We ran through Cat against Atlanta. We didn't run through Cat in San Antonio, right? Like, so you could see the changes that were made schematically, and that's the coaching part. But then you saw the players' execution was on such a high level. And I think that's why we blew people out, because the schemes were on point and the execution was on point. And Mike Brown became my guy in game 4 against Atlanta. And it wasn't even about the results. It was the process. When he said, we down 2-1, this is not working. I thought it would work. It's not. We need to change it up. Or maybe one of the coaching staff came to him and said, it's not working. You need to switch it up. But he listened. However it happened, right? The Knicks were a different team in game 4 in Atlanta. Karl Anthony Towns had the ball, and they were doing flex cuts. Okay, now. All right, now. And it was at that point where I said, okay, he sold out. It's not about this is what I think. I'm just sold out to the process of winning a championship, whatever that looks like. And when he was hired, I said, listen, the challenge for Mike Brown is going to be to maintain the floor and raise the ceiling. And that floor during the regular season, there was concerns about whether that
looked like we had termites a couple times.
Exactly. But at some point, the floor stabilized, and we were like, I don't know, even going into the season, the Knicks were a little rocky, but it was a little more stable, I guess. But in the playoffs, the floor solidified. You knew what you was getting from this team, playoff game in and playoff game out, and the ceiling just...
It was an elevator that just kept going and going and going. But I also want to add one other thing. I agree with everything you said, but I think there's one other thing, that you made me think of just now, that to add to that. It was also the conditioning.
Yes.
It was also that these guys were in the best shape of their lives. And when it took teams 2.5 quarters, they're just giving their all effort, everything they have to stay with the Knicks or even be ahead of the Knicks. But by the time that fourth quarter hit, they were worn out and we were just getting going. How often did we see that? Is that we wore teams out with our physicality, with our ability to play. And part of that, I think, was the less minutes for guys like Cat and Brunson and Bridges and OG during the regular season. I think that had an impact. Remember, Josh Hart even said when it came to the Indiana series, he said he was done. He was spent. He had used up. His gas tank was completely on empty. It was on fumes. And you saw it by the way he played. Well, you didn't see that with this team. They looked always like the fresher team and come down the stretch. They always looked like they had just one extra gear to go to when I doubted the gear several times. I'm like, this game's over. How many times did I text you that during the playoffs? This game's over. And then, it's over. For them, it don't matter if we're down 20. It don't matter if we're down 29. We're going to take that game because we know that we're in the best condition, that we have the best athletes, that we're the best team, and we're just going to go do what we do best and dare you to stop us, and they couldn't stop us.
Yeah, that's a fact. Kudos to Mike Brown. Before the season, we all picked an X factor. Did your pick live up to it? Do you remember who it was?
I don't even remember who I picked. If my guess is it probably would have been Mikal or Deuce. And if it's Deuce, he certainly didn't. And if it was Mikal, I would even say still didn't. And Bridges had some moments in this playoff run. Look, the picks thing is a moot point from here on out. Mikal came as a finishing piece, and he helped us finish the task at hand. And so for forever from now on, it doesn't, even if all of those lottery picks turn into stars, it's not about getting stars, it's about winning championships. And he was a key piece to that puzzle. and he had some moments, including in the closeout game, right? Everybody talks about 45 points from Jalen, and he was incredible, especially since all we did was run 1-4 flat like the entire fourth quarter, which I thought was amazing strategical decision by Mike Brown, because again, the ability to switch it up and go with what you trust. And right there, he's showing trust in his best player. But I'm pretty sure that our second leading scorer that game was McCall. And I don't know that anybody talks about that. And if you look at I've always criticized his on-ball defense since he got here. But if you look at his points per possession for the entire season, he's one of the best in the league on on-ball defense for the entire season and the playoffs. So you want to talk about a guy who changed, and like that's how I am. If the facts change, I'm going to go with what the facts say. I can't go with what my narrative was. My narrative was that he's not a great on-ball defender. Well, the stats say, Geoff, you're a liar, and so I have to change that take and say he was phenomenal as an on-ball defender this entire season, and that's one of the reasons why we're standing here with the championship trophy today.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt about it. I don't remember who I had as the X factor either, but I this kind of leads into the next question. What opinion were you completely wrong about this season? It took me about a week to think about what I was wrong about. No, I'm kidding. I would say that I was wrong about Mikal Bridges. I was wrong about I misunderstood his role. I wanted Mikal Bridges to be the third option on this team. I wanted Mikal Bridges to be the person that stepped up when Brunson had a bad game or Brunson couldn't play. I wanted Mikal Bridges to be more assertive on the offensive end. And when he wasn't that, I was like, all right, I mean, okay, fine. If this is who he's going to be, 14, 5, and 5, I mean, I'm pretty sure we can get that for less money. But what I saw in the playoffs, and again, he raised his level of play. Don't get me wrong. Like I wasn't totally off base. Like he was kind of up and down in the regular season, 100%
right? He was.
But I got to see who he could be in a newer light in the regular season, in the playoffs. I got to see this utility guy, and you could say Josh Hart is a utility guy too, but a utility guy on a higher level, and somebody that can hit the corner three, that can get into the lane, that can get his shot off the mid-range, that can make a pass. Don't underestimate driving and kicking, right? His ability to drive and kick, and his defense was at another level in the playoffs. Maxey, Shea's cousin on Atlanta, who was
Nickeil Alexander-Walker,
who had one of the best seasons of his year, like a fart in a dust storm. He wasn't even there, like it seems like, because he took him out the game. So I got a chance to see who this guy can be when he's really locked in on both sides of the ball. So,
and then he had that play in the playoffs where it seemed like he dribbled all the way across the court and hit that dagger three-pointer that was so desperately needed in one of those comebacks. I just like that play just stands out to me. Seems like he ran all the way around the court, which he always does. Like he's in phenomenal shape. He plays every game, and he runs like 8,000 miles every game. So this is a hard question for me though, because I'm wrong so often. It's hard for me to just pick
got a
one
few more, Geoff, but I'm gonna turn it over. I'm gonna turn it over to, because I already talked about I was wrong about the defense. But go ahead. I guess I think the number one. I'll say two because that stand out to me. I was wrong about the Jose Alvarado acquisition. I thought he was too small, and he wasn't a really good 3-point shooter, so I didn't really see the utility in bringing him on board. And he showed his playmaking. He is outstanding. His ability to just run the offense when Brunson is not on the court. And even when Brunson is on the court, they didn't play together a lot, but even that combo worked because you could play JB off the ball and be comfortable that what the offensive sets that the coach wants run are being run. And he's small, but he's gritty. He's got that New York
toughness and mindset. He's not afraid to, go up against Wemby and so forth. And East Blue Drew says, apologize to Jordan Clarkson. Jordan Clarkson, I'm sorry, but he's not going to be my number 2 here. My other one is that Karl Anthony Towns needed to make more shots for this, or take more shots for this team to succeed. I honestly was through the regular season, I was very frustrated. The Towns attempts were down by at least 3 or 4 per game, and I was like, "Why are we doing this? We're misutilizing our potential here." And here I wasn't realizing the intentional sacrifice that Karl was making to his own game for the betterment of the team and for wanting to fit in with what Mike Brown was wanting him to do and focus on the things that Brown was wanting him to do. And even in the playoffs, this is a guy who scored 20 points per game like it's in his sleep. And he didn't do that, and he didn't complain. He didn't whine about it. He didn't do anything. He just went and he did what he needed to do. He got tough defensive rebounds in traffic. He showed that he could be a legitimate NBA defender on a championship team. He did whatever the coaching staff asked of him. And, oh, by the way, there were times where he hit big shots, like that shot where he hits the 3 and then he's falling into the bench. And it's part of the 29-point comeback. One of the great shots. I mean, just degree of difficulty. And then he had that other one over Wemby, which was a post move, which it didn't even look like it was going to work. He got fouled like 4 times without a call, and he still put the ball in.
Yeah. We were on the chat. I was like, how many fouls was that?
But he still made it. So those would be the 2 most glaring. But again, there are more than that we could go all night about the things I was wrong about.
Right.
But I don't need to embarrass myself any further. So what's the next question?
Yeah. But I will say this though, Geoff, you may have been wrong about shot attempts, but I don't think you were wrong about him being more involved in the offense. And I don't know if it's about shot attempts as much as it's about touches. Because of his skill set, I wanted him to have more touches because I felt like it would diversify our offense than just going through Brunson. Like we would have other options, and that showed itself in the playoffs. Some series we went through Brunson, some series we went predominantly through Cat, and obviously throughout the game we went, through both of them. So I don't know if you were totally wrong about that, because part of us reaching our ceiling was going through Cat in Atlanta, going through Cat the first few games of Cleveland. And I don't know if we're getting exactly what we want out of it. I think we need to mix it up a little bit. So I don't know if you were totally wrong about that. But yeah, I think if you're just focusing on field goal attempts, maybe I'm trying to take the edge off for you.
I appreciate it.
Give you a little grace. And I already talked earlier about being wrong about the Knicks defense and what was possible for it. And my wildest dreams, I didn't think the Knicks could play defense like this. I thought Towns could be better in terms of his rotations. I thought Brunson could be better. I never thought the Knicks could be what they turned out to be. It was just phenomenal. A 2-way team. And let's not underestimate Cat's defense on Wemby.
100%. That's a great point.
Yeah. Let me know in the chat if you were wrong. Sherwin is not here anymore, right? Because I'm sure Sherwin would say he didn't think we could win because we were too short. All right. Let me know in the chat if you were wrong about anything or any player. Tori B already talked about Mike Brown. What's the biggest narrative that has changed or should change now that the Knicks are champions?
That Jalen Brunson is an MVP caliber player.
Mm-hmm.
The performance in the closeout game with a busted hand on the best defense in the league, defensive player of the year. I mean, what more can you ask for from the guy? I mean, is he always perfect? No, but when it comes to you need a bucket, he just finds a way. His fourth quarter scoring, even in the playoffs, is elite. Everybody knows that he's getting the ball. They throw two guys at him. It doesn't matter. I mean, he's a superstar, and he's an MVP candidate. And it should be that he's only 6'1" or 6'2", whatever he is. That should add to his MVP stature, not detract from it. And somehow it's used to punish him. And he's the ultimate closer. The difference between the Knicks and the Spurs was that we had a number one closer and they didn't. Like, if you want to be honest about it, look at all the shots that Wemby missed down the stretch. In fact, probably their most clutch player in the down the stretch was Steph Castle, and that was at the free throw line. Like, he hit 4 big free throws in the finals that I can remember. But who else from that team? I mean, Dylan Harper had a really good series, but even he missed an inside shot. De'Aaron Fox struggled mightily, and he had a reputation in his time under Mike Brown. He was one of those ultimate clutch fourth quarter guys. He's not the same player because of injuries or whatever else, but Brunson's just so consistent, and he comes up with these games that are just unheard of in the playoffs. I mean, for that, it almost seems blasphemous to me, but it's not. But it's Allen Iverson level stuff. And when you say that he won a championship and Iverson didn't, you start to say, well, where do you rank those two players? I know you're a big Allen Iverson guy person, so I'm curious to what your opinion on that is. But and Iverson is as tough as they come, and they're different players too. How they scored the ball was different, but he, to do everything that he did with a hand that's damaged, lights out MVP. All the accolades, and everybody who doesn't, you can sit on attack as far as I'm concerned if you don't think he is.
Yeah, I definitely think that's one of the narratives that should change. There's still people out there doubting Brunson. So I don't think it has changed. I think it's changed for a lot of people, but there are some people out there still holding on to the narrative. Oh, he had a good team. What the heck? Everybody had a good team. Magic had Kareem. Michael had Scotty. Like, none of those guys who we consider great did it on their own. Kobe had Shaq. You know what I mean? So there's going to always be detractors, but I agree with you. I think that is definitely one of the narratives that should change if it hasn't already. And the other one is that Cat is soft, and that you're not going to be able to win a championship if Cat is the number 2 on your is your team. I think that's a narrative that hopefully we can put to bed, because Cat was phenomenal in throughout the playoffs. And I think if you're just going by points per game, you're missing the picture of what he brought to the Knicks, rebounding wise, defensive wise, passing, scoring, whatever it took. Like, for somebody as talented as he is, and you can argue, I separate talent from production, right? Some people see him as the same. I don't. You could be a very talented player with a great skill set and not come through when you need to come through or elevate your team, right? You can argue he's more talented than Brunson. You could say maybe he's not a better player than Brunson. Maybe you would choose Brunson if you were drafting over Cat. But talent-wise, he's one of the top talented players in the history of the game, and I don't think that's hyperbole. And this guy is out there.
Greatest shooting big man in the history of the game, point blank, flat out.
And this guy is out there diving on the floor, sacrificing offense and shots to guard Wemby. Like, Cat, there's nothing. First of all, there was nothing you can tell me about Cat even before the playoffs. But you cannot tell me anything about Karl Anthony Towns. Nothing. Now, I don't want to hear it. you know?
So we need to clip this, and we're going to put it into David Smith's box to show as proof Queen does not hate Karl Anthony Towns. We have the proof. We have the video evidence. It's on tape, David. I've been telling you this for years, but
yeah, no doubt. But you could still appreciate a player and point out that his defense needed to be better. He wasn't rotating when he needed to rotate over, like, you know.
And isn't the mark of a great player is to notice his deficiencies and the plays that he's costing the team, and to strengthen those things and not just, oh, well, this is what I know how to do, so that's the only thing I'm going to do. He actively worked at improving that area of his game, and he did it, and it was a critical part to what we had to do, and so yeah, that's definitely a great point.
Yeah, no doubt. So those are the two narratives. Any other narrative that you think is changed? Oh, let me get to Wiz. If Iverson had this team, he would have also won a chip. You know, this just brings me back to, I don't even want to mention her name, that the Knicks don't have a dude. In my opinion, one of the sloppiest takes ever, because it's just because you're short. Not because of your game, not because of the roster around you. You didn't win because you were short, right? And I said at the time, if Allen Iverson lost to the Lakers were the better team. I'm surprised they even got one game out of that. If Iverson had Shaq and Fox and all of those guys, I'm sure he would be a champion today as well. So like, rosters matter, you know? So just sloppy work all around from that quote. But anyway, Geoff, anything else you were going to say about narratives that's changed since the championship?
I don't know. So all the LOL Knicks for clicks, all of it needs to go away. Like, just shut up. Keep our name out your mouth. You don't need to say a word. You're going to say Knicks, just we're the NBA champions. Salute, and we'll appreciate it. Thank you. If you're going to live in negative world and try and diminish our championship and say that it was lesser because of our seeding or whatever else, we went 16-3 and one of the most dominant playoff runs you'll ever see. And we can't control who we play, but you didn't say that when the Nuggets won their championship and didn't play better than a 4 seed. You didn't say it when the Celtics won it and they didn't play anybody better than a 4 seed. We actually played the 2nd seed out west, who everybody said was going to beat us, and we beat them in 5 games. So just tip your cap and say, have a nice day. And if you don't have anything nice to say, just keep your mouth shut.
Great point. The biggest narrative that's changed is the narrative about the Knicks being cellar dwellers and not a good, like that narrative, and being the butt of jokes. And in my opinion, that should have been changed, because we've been over 50 games and at least over 45 games for the last, 4 seasons. But of course, with the Knicks, things die hard. You got to actually win the chip in extraordinary fashion to have a chance to change the narratives. And that's what the Knicks did. So absolutely. 2 more questions, and we out of here. What made this team different than any other Knicks team you've watched, including the championship teams?
Well, I never got to see, except on YouTube, the previous championship teams. So my answer is that they're the best team I've ever seen. I didn't really see ego from any of these guys. Like they worked really hard to be champions in their role, to be the best version of themselves that they could be in every aspect, and to work together and to play together and be the, have the sum be greater than that of its parts. And they took sacrifice seriously, and more to the point, it's like the interview with Mikal Bridges when we were up 2-0. He said it's 0-0. that mentality. And he knew, because he had been up 2-0 as a member of the Phoenix Suns and lost 4 straight to Milwaukee. So he knew, but it's one thing to say it like it's 0-0. It's another thing to play like it. And the Knicks consistently played like it. Like it's 0-0, nothing else matters but the next game. And I think that's how you're able to win 13 playoff games in a row, is because you're not looking past a series. You're not looking past a quarter. You're not looking past a 5-minute segment. You're just trusting your work and knowing you've got to work hard in each aspect of the game for the entirety of the game. And that mentality really shone through. And it was a team that learned its lesson from the last 2 losses to the Pacers, and kudos to whoever it was. I think it was Dylan Jones who said, show him the video of losing to the Pacers at game 1. Show him that video. It had an impact, right? We're going to take this seriously. We're going to keep working. We're going to do what we need to do until the job's not finished. And it's finished. I remember the interview with Brunson, and she's like, well, you're out of games now. It's finished. Can we talk about it? Or something. I'm paraphrasing, but to me, that's what stands out.
Yeah, for sure. What made this team different than the others that I've watched? I'm going to say the talent, because I've seen other Knick teams be as mentally tough as this team. I've seen other Knick teams be as physically tough as this team. And you can argue that those 90 teams got the most that they could get out of their offense because they just weren't good offensive teams, and they squeezed the most they can squeeze out of it. But I still would say this team was better at maximizing the talent, maximizing who they could be offensively, and maximizing what they could be defensively. I thought what made this team different was that they found their ceiling in the playoffs, and they played near that ceiling every single game. And I think that's what I will remember. I don't know if I've ever seen a team hit their stride in the playoffs. I know Miami a few years back caught lightning in a bottle where they shooting just turned around, and the next thing you know, they shot through.
But that faded, right? We were able to attain and maintain. It's one thing to attain, but then to maintain and keep going and keep at that high level for over and to keep at that high level with having weeks off, like 2 8-day breaks, and in some sense that helped them, I think, with their toward the end of the game. But that can't be easy. Like, you're in a rhythm, you're in a flow, beat the 76ers by 8,000 points, and then you have to, then you have the All-Star break, right? And then you're facing a team that's even better than the Sixers, in Cleveland the next round. And then you do the same thing to Cleveland, and all of a sudden you're turning around and you're on the road in San Antonio, and you got to win game 1. That can't, in the long run, I think the rest helped us, but in the short term, to be able to stay focused and maintain the energy level and all of those things, that's not easy, in my opinion.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I think also a difference, Geoff, is Miami caught lightning in a bottle. They weren't a good shooting team. They just started shooting well in the playoffs, and they were able to float to the finals. The Knicks already had this possibility within them. They just found it in the playoffs. And I think that's why they were able to take it further and actually win the chip. They were becoming who they always could have been, or we was always hoping they would be. Last question. 20 years from now, what's the first thing you're going to remember about this team, or the main thing you're going to remember about this team?
I don't know if I'll be on this earth in 20 years. I hope to be here. I'll probably be pushing up daisies, but if I'm still around, the thing that I'm going to tell my grandkids about and great grandkids about is probably the OG tip-in and the 29-point comeback. Like, I think that epitomizes everything that this team is. Like, the never say die, the no quit attitude, the contributions from everyone the atmosphere in the building. I'll never forget Mike Breen. The building is shaking. You know, I'll never forget that call as long as I live. And it goes in, it goes in, it goes in. You know, those moments are just like seared in my brain. And just because when you're watching the game on television, and that's all that I you know. That's the other thing. Playoff tickets were $8,000 a seat or something great. Like you couldn't, you know, none of us regular fans could be there, you know. So we're all watching on TV, and they're muting the sound or dulling the sound, and it's still like you could feel it through the television. So that play in particular, but almost as much and maybe more so, and I think it ties back into what we're doing here, is the pan outs to Williamsburg and Central Park and all of these watch parties, and all of the city was just out in droves, and every single person that was out there was the same as us, just starving for a championship. And some of them had seen the glory days, and some of them became a Knick fan in 2022 and didn't really know any pain. And then there's us from the era of the 80s that, you know, we had a lifelong of almost and pain. And so just the collective relief and celebration and the way that it transformed the city. You know what I mean? And everybody else was against us, but we didn't care. Everywhere we went, we turned to Madison Square Garden, including San Antonio, which San Antonio fans are crazy. Like that's the only game in town. Philadelphia, Cleveland, all of them became Knick Central. And so to me, other than the OG and the 29 point, I think that the collective awesomeness of we finally got the it felt like the people's championship.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was so much more than the players on the team. And the players on the team understood that in a way that made it more special. You know what I mean? They were cognizant, they were aware of it the whole time. And so I think that to me is as those two things are going to be the everlasting impressions for me.
Yeah. Well said. I think I'll just piggyback off of it and say I'll remember that we won this championship, and that at that time in my life, I was hosting a show and I got to share that journey with the Dope Soul family, you know, the panelists, those in the chat. Every game for that season, we came in here and we talked about our team, and we went through the highs and the lows with them. And at the end, we were able to celebrate. I think I'm going to remember the championship for sure, but I'm going to remember that we won that and I was part of a Knick community at the time. Yeah, so I appreciate you, Geoff. I appreciate everyone who's come on the panel, it's on this journey, those in the chat.
There's a record of it forever. That's the cool part. It's all archived. Like you can go back. We can show. Like when the 60s,
that's true.
My dad saw the first two championships. He can't do that in the same way. I mean, there's some footage of the games, but we can actually show the arguments that we had. This guy's a bum. Brunson can never lead a team. All of the stuff that was important to us in the moment that disappeared and vanished. All of it goes away. And now we get to celebrate as champs until we're not. And it's the most amazing feeling in sports that I'll ever have. And nothing will ever come close to it. And don't let us win back to back.
What?
Don't let us go back to back, because if that happens, my head gonna be so big it's not gonna fit. I'm gonna have to get a bigger camera or a wider lens.
Jeff's gonna wear his jersey to church.
Well, I'll tell you, I was joking with our youth minister. I said that Sunday, the first thing I almost said was Knicks in 5. But we have some Spurs fans. That wouldn't have gone over well. But I was this close. To starting my sermon with Knicks in 5. And he loved it. He's a Mavs fan, so he hates the Spurs. So he thought that was hilarious. So shout out to Sawyer, my guy.
Yeah, I said that was the last question, but I got one more, Geoff. Favorite story or storyline from the season? Besides us winning it all, of course.
I think my favorite storyline is OG Anunoby. I really think that's my favorite storyline. I love, because I doubted it. I did. I was like, yeah, he can do it for a game or two, but that's not who he is. That's how many times did I say that on this show? That's not who he is. Jerrell and I were in the same court. Okay, Steph, settle down. And then, we said it multiple times. And they're like, okay, right. But here he is in the playoffs. And it's time after time after time, big shot after big shot after big shot, defensive stop, block shot, rebound, whatever we needed. And oh, by the way, when he got to the free throw line in the fourth quarter of those games, ice water. I don't know how many big free throws he hit for us. And those are not to be discounted. I mean, every one of those points counted, especially when you're winning games by 1 and 2 points. So I think my favorite storyline is the emergence of OG, because he had appendicitis when the Raptors won the championship. Yes, he was part of that team, but he didn't even play in the playoffs. Like he had surgery on like April 12th, and it was an infection and all this other stuff. So he didn't get to shine and prove. And I remember when we made the trade, and I'm sure you do too, he said, I've got more to my game.
He did.
I've got more to my game, because Pascal Siakam was the 4 in Toronto. So he was playing the 3, and he didn't get a lot of touches just based on the overall makeup of that team. And he said, I've got game. And we're like, okay, yeah, whatever, OG. You're right, just go play defense, whatever. And then, and then here's a guy who got that contract, and how many people said, we're paying him $250 million and he's not even an all-star. Is there anybody who wouldn't sign their name on that contract today? So that's my storyline of the season, I think.
Yeah. That is a good one. Yeah, I know Brunson is my guy. Yeah, I gave me the business throughout the season. But my favorite storyline was Brunson dropping 45 points in a closeout game on the road in San Antonio, where one of his main critics was a big part of that organization. And he did it efficiently for all of those that was on him that he wasn't efficient. With the players bumping him and pushing him around, and the officials not calling anything. But okay, he wasn't efficient. All right, fine.
With a broken hand, by the way.
Okay. That was my favorite storyline, that he can put all the criticism to bed. Put it to bed. That night, the entire basketball world was watching. Globally was watching Jalen Brunson at 6'2", generously do his damn thing in San Antonio. And some of those baskets, he went right at Wemby, the defensive player of the year. The right-handed scoop layup where Wemby is scaffolding like a giraffe as he's going and laying it up. The three-pointer over him. That was my favorite storyline. I'm gonna put this to bed for everybody. I'm putting it to bed for everybody, even Knick fans in this chat. I'm putting it to bed who I am, because a lot of people focus on the talent and the skill level and what a person does. Not a lot of focus on when they do it. And that's what separates the greats. It's not their talent and their skill and what they do. It's when they do it. And I've seen it with Michael. I've seen it with Kobe. I've seen it with Isaiah Thomas. I've seen it with Larry Bird, underrated. Sorry, Geoff. By a lot of people. I think I mentioned Magic, Michael. I've seen it. That's what separated them. And that's what separated Jalen Brunson. That was a performance for the ages. And that's my favorite storyline of this season.
Smallest in size, but biggest in stature. You can't judge a heart, and if anyone has a heart of a champion, you can't. I mean, he's won at every level, and he proves people wrong. There's no what he does incalculable. Like his set of skills, the way he moves his feet, the things that it's incredible what he can do. And he's not even a natural lefty. He trained himself to be left-handed, so just so he could be this incredible basketball player. That's phenomenal stuff.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Greg, my favorite moment of the season is Bodega Town sacrificing his wants and skills for the betterment of the team while we won a chip. Listen, everybody was why we won a chip. Cat was why we won a chip. OG was why we won a chip. Mitchell Robinson with that huge offensive rebound off of Josh Hart's miss was why we won a chip. You can point to any player on this team at one point or another. Alvarado coming in when we were down 29 points for the game, coming in the fourth quarter with the scoop layup and the 3-point shot was why we won a chip. There's multiple players we can point to, but nobody is going to tell me that there was anybody on our team that could do what Jalen Brunson did in Game 5. I'm sorry. You're just not going to convince me that even given the opportunity that there was somebody else on the team that could have done what Jalen Brunson did. I'm sorry.
Not sure there was somebody else in the league. I'm going to put that. I'm not sure there's somebody else in the league that would have done what Jalen Brunson did. Look, 45-point closeout games in the finals don't happen every day. It probably hasn't happened but twice, maybe in league history, if at all. Like, it's one of the best postseason performances of all time. And ironically, it's probably not even the best closeout game in NBA Finals history for the Knicks. Shout out to my guy, Walt Clyde Frazier, with his 36 points and 19 assists, and 11 rebound triple double with having to do it all because the original captain Willis was on limited minutes, and so not even the greatest but as far as just overall scoring and efficiency, a top 5 performance of all time in the NBA Finals closeout game. Just period, point blank.
Right. Greg, you're missing the point. Like some people just don't want to give Brunson his due or feel like to give Brunson his due. Like you got to choose. Like you can't give everybody their due. But we don't win if Cat doesn't buy in because of the like. Stop. You don't have to make your case for Cat with me. I know what Cat meant to this championship. And you can look on any championship team. You're not doing it with one person. Even the championships that the Bulls made, you think they're winning all those championships without Scottie Pippen, Horace Grant, and the teams that were around Michael? Stop. We all know multiple players contribute to winning a chip. But at the end of the day, you got to have that dude. You got to have that dude. When things slow down and things get tight, and you got to have that dude. And the Knicks have that dude. I'm sorry. So whatever love affair you got going on with Cat, that does not mean you have to take anything away from what JB did. A lot of people in here complain, we're not going to win because he takes so many shots and he not passing it around. Jalen Brunson was out there looking like he was playing ping pong. He throw the ball to somebody, they throw it right back to him. He throw the ball to him, they throw it right back to him. He said, all right, I see what's going on here. And that could be, some people say that's because they were scared for the moment, but others could be like they trusted him in those moments and said, this is your time, and gave it back. It could be either one. But go back and look at those games in the fourth quarter where he's passing it, they passing it back. He passing it, he said, you know what? I got it.
Jordan never won without Pippen.
Nope.
And the Knicks, Leon Rose built this team around the skills of Jalen Brunson, right? Like Mitch was here before him, but he's a bench player. Deuce was here before him, again, a bench player. Everybody else built around Jalen Brunson. What pieces do we need to put in place to maximize the talents of Jalen Brunson? And Karl Anthony Towns is a huge part of that because he's a stretch five and he played great defense and he makes it difficult for you to double team Jalen because of the gravity that he has and his ability to make plays and shoot. First of all, shoot the three from above the break and to make plays from above the break off the dribble and just blow by people. Both of those skills are dramatically important for maximizing who Jalen Brunson is. And that's what this whole time has been since we signed him. It's been, how do we, I think year one was discovering that he was a dude, right? I don't think I thought he would be good. We didn't think he would be this good. But once we discovered, hey, this is a guy you can build around, the rest of the time, those next 3 seasons was all about how do we get the right pieces, parts around Jalen Brunson. And they needed stout wing defenders. You got OG and Bridges. You needed, a do it everything, muck it up guy like Josh Hart. You needed another defensive center in there. So Mitch is in there. You needed a backup point guard, Jose Alvarado. You needed a 2 who can fight over screens and do things. So you had Deuce, you had Shamet, you had Jordan Clarkson, all these guys. So it was all of that is built upon. He's the cornerstone. He's the foundation piece. He's the cinder block that the rest of it is built around, and the rest of it is important and it's magnificent. But he is the cornerstone.
Yeah, and he needed help, like all number ones do. You're not doing it on your own. Yeah. Wiz BKLA. I didn't know that the Queen loved us, even though some of us get on her last nerve. David Sherman Parrott.
Wiz just calling people out in the chat.
Listen, y'all my people, man. Y'all allow me to be myself and be strong and wrong, and y'all still come back. Y'all don't hold it against me. I appreciate that. That's what family do, man. I appreciate it. Wiz also said, if we stay healthy, we will win. We will win 60 games and another championship. Mark my words. I mean, Trey made a good point. Teams that repeat find different ways. You may not be able to do it the same way. And even though the Knicks may not be able to make major moves, let's not discount internal growth. Let's not discount OG taking another step. Let's not discount Mikal Bridges being that player for the entire season that he was in the playoff. Let's not discount the Brunson Cat dynamic that we didn't take full advantage of in the regular season. There's a lot of internal, or as Trey said, a Diawara or Kolick or someone breaking out and becoming more of a fringe role player, right?
So here's my question. I've seen this multiple times now in the chat. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just asking a question. Do you envision Towns taking a major pay cut to stay in New York on an extension? Because Brunson got the most money he could get on that contract. How he saved the Knicks money is he didn't wait until it expired and then sign a max. His signing of the extension, but he still got the most dollars that he could possibly get. And what I'm seeing, not just from the chat, I've seen this other places too, is Towns taking significantly less money. That's not something that happens very often. I'm not saying it's impossible. I just am curious of your opinion. Do you think that he's going to take a significant haircut, like down to $40 or $50 million a year?
No. I think he might take a little haircut. I mean, even looking at OG's contract, I think he took a little haircut too, right?
A small one, yeah.
Yeah, he could have got more than, he could have got more, a little more than that. So I anticipate that happening, but I don't think a major, and I don't think he should take a major one. I think the Knicks are going to have to reconfigure this team. You cannot have your starting 5 I don't know what it is, 60, 65%, 80% of the it's untenable.
200 of 220 million, whatever that is.
200 of, like, it's untenable. You got to pick who your three best players are. In my opinion, that's Brunson, Cat, and OG. And you may have to downgrade, find people who can do what Bridges and Josh does for less money, so you can fill out your bench and have a more balanced team. You know, I think it's unfair to ask him to take 40 million. He's one of the best. He's one of the best players on the team. There's enough money in you know, for your top two guys to, you know, I'm not saying, you know what? Let me take that back. I'm not sure there's enough money for two super maxes on a team. I think that's the issue Boston ran into, two super max contracts. But there is enough for one super max and the other two to get really, really good money. You know? But all five of them, I just don't see it.
I agree with you. So I think that the quest to stay below the second apron will continue, and I think what we'll see is maybe, and it sounds crazy because they're his boys, but maybe Josh Hart or Mikal Bridges or both, you know, moving elsewhere to keep whatever the core. Because I kind of think that if you're gonna keep the core together, the guys that are most important are probably OG, Towns, and Brunson, I would think. And you know, we showed that we're not afraid to deal one of his. I mean, Dante DiVincenzo's in Minnesota. He's not in New York. So if they need to trade Bridges or Hart or both, I think that they'll be willing to do that as part of the business. But I actually think that's going to, in a couple of years, that's going to become a necessity. And the Hart extension situation is interesting. What kind of a discount, if any, does he take, or does he want all the money? Like, he's due to make 22 million next year, which isn't bad for a starter. But you know, if you're talking about an extension, do we want to be in the business of paying him $30+ million a year? I mean, he's a terrific player. You know, he shot the ball really well from 3-point range until the playoffs. You know, and he does a lot for us. He was a big cog, but at what point do you say, well, you know, we have to look elsewhere to, you know, to find? And these are all difficult questions, and it's tough to juggle because you're trying to win a championship again.
Yeah. Magellan, Josh Hart is underpaid compared to others. And he might be, but we have to, I don't know if it has to be compared to the salary cap and compared to the other players on your team. I think that's what it comes down to. Now, I'm not hearing, there's a lot in the chat about Ant-Man. I didn't hear any rumors about him, but again, I've been away on vacation. But I know Greg asked the question. Let me see. I might not have started, but he was one of the ones that asked a question about whether we would trade for Ant-Man, and somebody else, Nick Yak, said, if we can't afford Mitch, how can we afford Ant? Like, two different things. I don't think the Knicks were not willing to trade away a player to create cap space to sign Mitchell Robinson. The Knicks might be open to trading away a few players to open up space to bring in Ant-Man. So I think that's what it is. You would have to trade somebody to bring in Ant-Man.
And that the only way he becomes available is if he demands out, right? I mean, that's he's the cornerstone of Minnesota. Minnesota's still a really good team. I mean, you want to talk about if LeBron James was interested in winning a championship, signing with them, like, that's their weakness right now. He would plug in perfectly over there. I think if James went to the Timberwolves, they would be really, really tough to stop.
Yeah. East Blue Drew said if the LaMelo experiment doesn't work, he might. But
if you're the Wolves, you get rid of LaMelo. You won't get rid of Ant-Man. Like you'll say, okay, this didn't work. We're gonna hold on to the better player. I would think. I mean, I don't
Unless he decides he wants out.
right, and he might. You know,
Yeah,
it happens with a lot of most stars, I guess nowadays. Like they get tired of their spot. So,
yeah. Any last words, Geoff?
good to be back with the Queen. And it's good to be back. The Dope Soul Sports. We it's good to have you home. I missed our other crew. It was good. Thank you so much to Trey for coming on and elevating the level of the show. I loved his takes. It was awesome that he shared. I love the chat that we had. It was really on fire tonight. I appreciate everyone. And man, we don't have to worry about Summer League because we're NBA champions. It don't matter what happens in Summer League. It don't matter with all these other deals. We get to bask in the glow and enjoy it, Knicks fans, because these doesn't happen very often. So
yeah, you're absolutely right, Geoff. I appreciate you as always. I missed the the recaps. Maybe at some point, maybe next off season, we got to figure out like a weekly show or something at lunchtime, to kind of keep that flow going.
Game sounds fun.
Yeah. Shout out to the chat, BKNY 1982. Appreciate you, Greg. You already know. Appreciate you, East Blue Drew. Sherman was in the house. Wiz BKLA, appreciate you. Nick Yak, appreciate you. Magellan. Latoria was in the house. I believe Wonder Woman was in the house as well.
She was here early.
Yeah, definitely appreciate that. JM3000, Old Head. Appreciate you guys always rocking with us. David L. Byer, I appreciate you. Replay Gang, you already know. Silent listeners, you already know. Oh, I did want to mention this. Michigan Wolverine 1986. I got a chance. So I took a cruise out of Fort Lauderdale, and that's where Stafford's buried. So that was the plan when I went down, was to, visit his gravesite, and he already knew the Knicks won the championship, obviously, and that Mitchell Robinson was traded. I mean, he would be pissed right now. We didn't go over the second apron to sign Mitchell Robinson. It was on a weekend, and so I had the garden he was in, the lot, the site, it was 3 numbers. But apparently they just weren't marked well. So I was able to get to Garden 49, but nothing else was marked. And I spent, I don't know, maybe an hour and a half walking through Garden 49, looking at each, tombstone, trying to find it. I wasn't able to. It was the weekend. The office was closed, but I was in the general vicinity, and I talked to my guy about missing him and not being able to share the championship with him in person, and all the conversations that we had.
Stafford Don helped OG tip that in. We know.
Yeah, Stafford Don, right? Exactly.
He gets to insist.
Yeah, and then also he was a huge Mitch. Like, you think Geoff and Nick Nation and Delusional and Ebony, shout out to Ebony, Nick of Time, are big Knick fans. You want to get cut?
You don't say nothing bad about Mitch. It's like saying something bad about Deuce when Wiz in the house. You don't do it. Don't go around here.
Oh my, Mitchell Robinson, the Stafford Don. Oh, you're not gonna even be able to finish the sentence. But may he continue to rest in peace. And him and a lot of other Knick fans weren't here to see it in person, but they were here in spirit. So continue to rest in peace, Staffer. Yeah, that's all I got to say. You know, shout out to all of you. Again, the replay gang again, silent listeners again. Geoff, you already know. Jerrell, Knick Nation, Ajay, who couldn't be here. I appreciate all of you. We'll be back next Thursday. If anything happens, there may be a pop-up show. But until then, peace.
Peace.
Sister, you one of a kind.
Yes.
Sister, it's time you
That's her.
shine. Don't so.
Where you at? Where you at?
Don't so.
Where you at? Where you at?